The Fugitive is a near perfect example of a simple story well told. Nearly every scene accomplishes two things at once by heightening the tension and advancing character arcs.
Richard!
We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. The Fugitive is what I like to call a movie. I know that sounds dumb, but what I mean is that it's not setting out to do anything more than engage you for its entire runtime.
Officer, there's a man in a blue top coat waving a gun and screaming. And a woman. Stop that man!
Not to be confused with a dumb fun movie, I'm not talking about guilty pleasures or slop. The story here is simple, but that is not always a bad thing. The Fugitive strikes a perfect balance by serving up a relatable story while not treating the audience as dumb. It's so efficient because nearly every scene is advancing the story by raising the stakes, advancing character arcs, or both. And the movie wastes no time. Within the first 13 minutes, it establishes everything we need to know about the case itself. Helen Kimball had died after being attacked in her home. Richard was there, but he also claims that a one-armed man was there too, and he's the one responsible. In the interrogation scene, the police obviously don't believe him. They quickly establish a motive through Helen's life insurance policy. And in the courts, it seems like an open and shut case. Richard is convicted and receives a death sentence. Now, in a lot of movies, the main tension here would probably be whether or not Richard is telling the truth. But that's never really a question in this story. That tension is established through Harrison Ford's performance at the end of the interrogation.
When I came home, there was a man in my house. I fought with this man. He had a mechanical arm. You find this man. You find this man.
The irony is that this will soon be his goal through the rest of the movie. The opening sequence cuts back and forth between Richard being arrested and interrogated and events from earlier in the night. But the best part about this opening sequence is that it's also planting important story elements that are going to come back later. The charity event and the surgery scene have details that just seem incidental to Richard explaining himself to the cops, but they're key aspects of the case.
Where'd he come from? Where did we get this guy?
Well, Lentz's name is on the chart.
In any movie, a good scene will usually be communicating multiple things to the audience at once, whether they realize it or not. Only a few minutes later, Richard is being transported on a prison bus when one of the other inmates tries to launch an escape, causing the bus to crash. Now you could have Richard just escape here, but there's more that we could get out of this scene and the filmmakers know it. So first, we're going to raise the stakes. Not only has the bus crashed, but it's landed on train tracks, and sure enough, a train is coming. One of the guards has been injured and Richard is trying to save him, but everyone, including the other guard, panics and jumps out of the bus. And here we see one of our big character moments. Richard refuses to abandon the injured man. So again, we see the movie doing two things at once. It raises the tension by upping the stakes, while also revealing more about our main character, Richard. This is a classic example of Hollywood storytelling. A screenwriter named Blake Snyder even wrote a book where the title references that concept, and it's called Save the Cat. The idea is that if you want to make the audience root for the protagonist, then you need to have the protagonist do something endearing early in the story, like saving a cat before it falls out of a tree. So now Richard is on the run. To prove his innocence, he'll have to find out who is the one-armed man and why did he want to attack Helen. It's hard enough to solve mysteries as it is, and Richard will have to do it while being chased by the authorities. But how could we heighten that tension even more? That's where we meet Samuel Gerard, a US Marshal. He arrives at the crash site to find that the local police force is assuming that everyone died in the crash.
Oh, wow, gee whiz, look here. You know, we're always fascinated when we find leg irons with no legs in them.
As he runs circles around the local authorities and takes over their investigation, the movie establishes him as confident, capable, and experienced at his job, and he is determined to catch Richard Kimball.
Target search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, or doghouse.
The whole movie continues to repeat that pattern. A scene will establish a character's goal, something will happen to heighten that tension, and it also reveals more about the character. In one of the most famous scenes, Gerard traps Richard in a tunnel so Richard escapes into the sewers. Gerard follows him but ends up falling and losing his weapon. He looks up only to see that Richard is pointing it at him.
I didn't kill my wife! I don't care!
Now we might laugh at Gerard's line because Tommy Lee Jones' delivery is so deadpan, but it's following that same pattern. He's not trying to mess with Richard, he really means what he said. He doesn't care if Richard is innocent or guilty, that's not his department. His job is to catch Richard, and that's all he cares about, and he's relentless.
Now, next thing I want to see a helicopter come over here, 100 feet off of this river.
What are you out of your mind? He's dead!
Learn how to make him easy to catch.
And this isn't the first time these character dynamics have been explored in a story, where you have the innocent good man on the run representing spirit of the law, and the uncompromising lawman man hunting him down, representing the letter of the law. The most famous version of that dynamic is probably Javert and Jean Valjean in Les Mis. This dynamic raises questions about the true meaning of justice. Is it about the law being upheld, or is it about the truth being revealed? Richard goes back to the hospital disguised as a janitor. He sneaks into the prosthetics limb department so that he can find the identity of the one-armed man. On his way out, Richard gets caught up in an emergency situation and is asked to transport a young boy to a different part of the hospital. Richard notices that the kid has been misdiagnosed and takes him to the surgery wing instead.
Hey, doctor. They sent this one up from downstairs.
Get this one into room 4, stat.
Bye-bye, Joel.
With this moment, we recognize that when Richard saved the guard, it wasn't just a save the cat moment. He can't not help people, even if it puts himself at risk. That's who he is. Gerard finds out about this when he interrogates the nurse that spotted Richard later. Gerard also pieces together what Richard is doing and decides to also start looking for the one-armed man. He's still hunting Richard, but we notice the slightest crack in his claim that he doesn't care. He's starting to wonder if Richard might be innocent. Along the way, Gerard continues encountering people that stick their neck out for Richard to try and help him, including Dr. Nichols, one of Richard's old colleagues. When Richard finally does locate the one-armed man, whose real name is Sykes, he learns that Sykes is essentially just a hired hand. Pun intended. But he has shocking connections with other doctors that Richard knew, and more importantly, Devlin McGregor, the pharmaceutical company that sponsored the charity event at the beginning of the movie. Devlin McGregor is trying to get their new product approved, a medication called Provasic. The problem is, it causes liver damage, which Richard discovered after seeing multiple patients that were suffering from that side effect after taking Provasic in a trial, including the one in the surgery he went to the night of Helen's death. Richard had been sending samples to a doctor that was supposed to be approving Provasic, but died in a car crash. When Richard sees that the samples were approved the same day he died, he realizes that the doctor was likely assassinated, and that Sykes was sent to do the same thing to Richard, but sadly found Helen at home instead.
I found him, Chuck. I found the man who killed Helen. What? It was me they were after.
Richard deliberately leaves this evidence behind for Gerard to find, and they both end up going to a medical conference where Richard's old friend, Dr. Nichols, just happens to be giving a speech as the doctor that is approving a great new medication called Provasic.
You switched the samples.
He falsified his research so that our DU-90 could be approved and Devlin McGregor could give you Provasic.
Richard ends up pursuing Nichols throughout the building, and Gerard follows, but the whole time he's actually trying to keep the local police from harming Richard, because at this point he believes Richard is innocent. In the last moment, when Nichols has an opportunity to take out Gerard,
Stop running!
Richard saves him. These two characters have a final moment in the car where Gerard reveals how his perspective has changed.
Thought you didn't care. I don't. Don't tell anybody, okay?
It's subtle, but it's a distinct character arc from the Gerard we saw at the beginning of the story. He believed his role in delivering justice was catching suspected criminals. The hard evidence that Richard delivered only solidified what Gerard was already suspecting.
They killed my wife. I know it, Richard. I know it.
That Richard was a good man, and he deduced that because he was constantly discovering evidence of Richard's good deeds as he pursued him. The Fugitive is one of those movies that you can study as an example of a simple story well told. There's a familiar character dynamic, the themes aren't subtle, but they resonate, and every scene keeps us engaged by accomplishing two things: raising stakes and making us care about the characters. And next week we're going to take a look at another movie where a man is accused of being something he's not, and it results in a chase to clear his name. Only this time, the man is mistaken for being an international spy. North by Northwest is an Alfred Hitchcock film that follows Roger Thornhill, who is an executive at an advertising company in New York City. He just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, leading foreign agents to believe he is George Kaplan, a spy for US intelligence. Thornhill then sets out to find the real Kaplan to clear things up. So here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. Why do you think the title is a reference to a point on a compass that doesn't exist? Hitchcock said that he wanted this movie to be something fun, lighthearted, and generally free of the symbolism permeating his other movies. But some film analysts have presented it as a commentary on moral relativism, especially in the Cold War era. So what do you think? This movie is often thought to have had a big influence on the James Bond franchise. With North by Northwest in 1959 and Dr. No, the first Bond movie, in 1962, what elements do you think carried over into the world and character of 007? So let's chat about The Fugitive in the comments, and I'll see you back here next Sunday to discuss North by Northwest. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.